Taman watched the massive screen in the Galactic Council chambers. Numbers flashed across it in red letters. Another 1,000,000 dead today. 3 planets turned to ash. 2 more species pushed closer to ending forever. He had been the human observer, here for 3 years now. Every day was the same. The 12 alien races sat in their special seats and argued about who should die next. They had been doing this for 800,000 years. 800,000 years of war. Taman could barely understand such a long time. Human history was only a few thousand years old. These aliens had been killing each other since before. Humans learned to make fire. The Velthani speaker stood up. Her crystal body caught the light and threw rainbow colors across the room. "The Pharaons attacked our mining colony at Sector 7, she said. Her voice sounded like breaking glass. "We demand immediate action." The Pharaon representative floated in his gas tank. His purple form swirled with anger. "Your people built that mine on our sacred burial clouds," he replied. "We had every right to destroy it." Taman rubbed his tired eyes. This was how every meeting went. Someone attacked someone else. Both sides claimed they were right. The fighting continued. Across the room, the insect-like Kythera clicked and buzzed at each other. Their hive mind made them speak in perfect unison. "The mechanical Nexari destroyed 17 of our breeding worlds," they said together. "This cannot stand." The Nexari representative was a tall robot made of silver metal. Red lights blinked where his eyes should be. "Your species breeds too fast," he said in a flat voice. "Population control is necessary for galactic stability, and..." So it went. 12 different species, dozens of different wars, all happening at the same time, all connected to fights that started before any of them could remember why. Taman looked at his notes. The Galactic Council met every day to discuss the war. But they never talked about ending it. They only argued about how to fight it better, who should attack where, which planets could be sacrificed, how many civilians could die before it became a problem. The humans were new here. Only 3 years since Earth had joined the galactic community. The other species thought humans were interesting but not important. They had given humanity observer status because humans had good technology but small numbers, not threatening enough to worry about, not weak enough to ignore completely. Jisoo sat next to Taman. She was the senior intelligence analyst for the human delegation. While Taman watched the public meetings, Jisoo gathered information from sources throughout the galaxy. She always looked tired these days. "Any new developments?" Taman whispered to her. Jisoo shook her head. "Same patterns everywhere. The Velthani are building 3 new crystal fortresses in the outer rim. The Pharaons are gathering storm fleets near the spiral arms. The Kythera just hatched their largest swarm in 50,000 years. And the humans? Still observing. Still learning. Still staying out of it. That was the official human position. Observe, but do not interfere. Learn about galactic politics, but do not take sides. Build relationships, but make no enemies. But Taman knew there were other humans working, in secret. Captain Hyunwoo commanded something called the Special Projects Division. Nobody talked about what they were building out there in the dark space between stars. On the screen, new reports came in. A battle near the Galactic Center had lasted 6 months. Both sides were running out of ships, but neither would retreat. 3 billion soldiers were trapped on a planet where the atmosphere had been poisoned by chemical weapons. The rescue mission had turned into another battle. "How does it ever end?" Taman asked quietly. Jisoo looked at him with sad eyes. "Maybe it does not end. Maybe this is just what the galaxy is now, war without purpose, fighting without hope." The Velthani speaker was arguing with the Pharaon again, something about territory that both sides claimed, territory that had changed hands 1,000 times over the centuries. Nobody remembered who owned it first. The Nexari robots calculated probability matrices for their next assault. the Kithara, planned breeding cycles that would produce warriors in 50 years. Everyone made plans for wars their grandchildren would fight. Taman had studied human history before coming here. Humans had fought many wars, but human wars ended, sometimes through victory, sometimes through peace agreements, sometimes because both sides got tired of fighting. These aliens never got tired. War was not something they did. War was what they were. The Dracani representative spoke for the first time today. His scaled face showed ancient scars from battles fought long ago. "We propose a joint strike against the ethereal homeworld," he said. "End this threat once and for all." The room erupted in angry voices. Half the species supported the idea. Half opposed it. Not because they cared about the ethereals, but because supporting or opposing the Dracani was part of their own wars. Taman watched species that had technologies humans could barely understand. They could build ships that moved faster than light. They could destroy entire star systems with single weapons. They could live for thousands of years and remember every detail of ancient battles, but they could not stop fighting. As the meeting ended for the day, Taman gathered his papers. Tomorrow would bring the same arguments, the same reports of death and destruction, the same plans for more war. He walked past the memorial wall in the main corridor. It listed every world destroyed in the Great War. Thousands of names carved in stone. Billions of people who had lived and died and been forgotten. At the bottom of the wall, someone had carved a question in the ancient galactic script. When will it end? Below that, in newer writing, someone else had answered, never. But as Taman left the council building, he thought about Captain Hyunwoo and the secret projects being built in human space. Maybe the answer on the wall was wrong. Maybe the galaxy just needed someone to show them how to stop. Minyo stared at the holographic display showing the entire galaxy. Red dots marked active war zones. There were so many red dots that the galaxy looked like it was bleeding. The room around him buzzed with quiet activity. Human scientists and strategists worked at their stations, analyzing 800,000 years of alien warfare. This was the Strategic Analysis Center, hidden deep inside a space station orbiting Earth. "Show me the Velthani attack patterns for the last 10,000 years," Minho said to his computer. The galaxy display changed. Blue lines traced the movement of Velthani crystal ships across space and time. They always moved in the same formations, always attacked the same types of targets, always retreated to the same defensive positions. Now, overlay the Pharaon responses. Purple lines appeared, showing how the gas beings reacted to Velthani attacks. Their patterns were just as predictable. When the Velthani built crystal fortresses, the Pharaons always responded with storm fleets. When the Pharaons gathered in nebula clouds, the Velthani always sent lance formations to break them up. Nari walked over to Minho's station. She was the lead engineer on humanity's most secret project. Oil stains covered her work clothes, and her hair was tied back with electrical wire. "The patterns are getting clearer," Minho said to her. "Look at this." He called up data on all 12 species. Each race had their own colored lines showing how they fought. The Kithara always swarmed. The Nexari always calculated optimal mathematical approaches. The Dracani always used honor-based tactical formations. "They are not really fighting anymore," Minho continued. "They are just following ancient scripts. The Velthani do X, so the Pharaons do Y. The Kithara do A, so the Nexari do B. None of them can think outside their old patterns." Nari studied the display. 800,000 years of the same moves over and over again. Exactly. They have forgotten how to adapt, how to surprise each other, how to actually win. Across the room, Seokjin was having a video call with the human leadership on Earth. He was the official ambassador to the Galactic Council, but he spent most of his time here in the secret facility. The council meeting today was typical, Seok-jin was saying to the screen. More reports of massive casualties, more plans for revenge attacks. No one even mentions the possibility of peace anymore. The voice from Earth belonged to the human Prime Minister. What about our observer status? Are they suspicious of our activities? No. They still see us as newcomers who do not matter. Taemin and Jisoo do excellent work making us look harmless. Minho listened while working on his analysis. The aliens thought humans were weak because humanity only had one small fleet and a few colonies. They did not know about the secret shipyards. They did not know about the technologies that Nari's team was developing. Most importantly, they did not know about the retribution. Nari moved to her own workstation and pulled up the ship's technical specifications. The Retribution was not the biggest warship ever built. It was not the most heavily armed, but it carried technologies that no alien race had ever imagined. "How is the temporal displacement system?" Minho asked her. "Working perfectly. In tests, we can move objects backward and forward in time by several hours. The quantum entanglement scramblers are ready too." Minho nodded. These were weapons that the galaxy had never seen. While the aliens fought with energy beams and missile swarms, humans had learned to manipulate the basic forces of reality itself. "What about the resurrection protocols?" Nari's face grew serious. "That one is still experimental. We can reverse death for organic beings who died within the last few hours. But the energy cost is enormous." "It only needs to work once," Minho said, "for demonstration purposes." The plan was simple in concept, but almost impossible to execute. Rather than joining the Galactic War, humans would end it. Not through superior firepower, but by showing the aliens that their entire way of thinking about warfare was obsolete. Seok-jin finished his call and walked over to them. "The Prime Minister has approved the final phase. Captain Hyun-woo will receive his orders tomorrow." Minho felt a chill of excitement and fear. They were about to attempt something that would either save the galaxy or make humanity the target of every alien weapon in known space. "Are we sure this will work?" Seok-jin asked. Minho pointed to the galaxy display, still showing the predictable patterns of alien warfare. "Look at them. They have been doing the same things for 800,000 years. When something truly unexpected happens, they will not know how to respond. But what if they unite against us? They cannot unite. That is their weakness. The Velthani will never trust the Pharaons. The Kythera will never cooperate with the Nexari. Even when facing something completely new, they will still follow their ancient hatreds." Nari pulled up another display showing the Retribution's current location. The ship was hiding in a nebula at the edge of known space, waiting for orders. "Captain Hyun-woo has the best crew in the human fleet," she said. "Hyun-woo is a tactical genius. Yuna speaks every known language in the galaxy. Do-hyun understands our new weapons better than anyone. And the ship itself? Ready for anything. The reality anchor systems will prevent enemy retreat. The physics manipulation cores can rewrite local spacetime. The consciousness transfer matrices can bring back the recently dead." Minho looked at the casualty reports from today's fighting. Millions dead in dozens of different battles. Families destroyed. Worlds burned. All for a war that nobody could remember starting. 800,000 years, he said quietly. That is longer than humans have existed as a species. These aliens have been killing each other since before our ancestors were even mammals. "Which is why they cannot see what we see," Seok-jin said. "They think war is natural, inevitable, the way things must be. But humans know better. Humans know that every war ends eventually, usually when someone gets tired of fighting. But these aliens never get tired." Nari checked her instruments. "So we have to make them tired. Show them something so far beyond their understanding that continuing to fight becomes pointless." The three humans stood looking at the galaxy display. Somewhere out there, Captain Hyun-woo and his crew were preparing for a mission that would either change everything or destroy humanity's future in space. 50 minutes, Minho said. Our analysis shows that 50 minutes of targeted action at the right location will be enough to disrupt every ongoing conflict simultaneously. And if we are wrong? Minho thought about the memorial wall at the Galactic Council, thousands of dead worlds, billions of forgotten lives, the question carved in stone asking when the war would end. If we are wrong, then the galaxy continues, burning forever. But if we are right, he gestured to the red dots covering the display. If we are right, then tomorrow the galaxy will be a different place. A place where war is not the only option, where peace is not just a dream that idealistic species hope for. Seokjin received a message on his communicator. Captain Hyunwoo reports ready for departure. All systems are functioning normally. Nari saved her work and closed the technical displays. Then it is time. Minho took one last look at the patterns of alien warfare stretching back across the centuries. Predictable, unchanging, ancient. But tomorrow, everything would change. The humans were about to show the galaxy what happened when an ancient dance of death met something truly unexpected. Captain Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of the Retribution as his ship dropped out of hyperspace. Around them, the largest battle in galactic history was taking place. Thousands of alien warships filled the space around them. Crystal Velthani dreadnoughts fired rainbow beams at purple Pharaon storm ships. Insectoid Kythera swarms buzzed around mechanical Nexari battle cubes. Ships from all 12 species fought in a massive free-for-all that had been going on for 6 months. Position report, Hyunwoo said calmly. Yunwoo checked his instruments. As tactical officer, he was responsible for understanding the battle around them. We are at the exact center of the engagement zone, Captain, equal distance from all major fleet concentrations. Communications? Yuna worked at her station, monitoring thousands of radio signals. All species are active on their military channels. They have not noticed us yet. The Retribution was designed to avoid attention until the right moment. It looked like a standard human cruiser from the outside. Nothing special. Nothing threatening, but inside, the ship carried technologies that could rewrite the laws of physics. Weapons status? Hyunwoo asked. Do-Yun ran through his checklist. He was the chief weapons officer, but his weapons were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Temporal displacement systems online, quantum entanglement scramblers ready, reality, anchor fields charged. Consciousness transfer matrices standing by. Through the main view screen, Hyunwoo watched the battle rage. A Velthani crystal fortress the size of a small moon traded fire with a Pharaon nebula ship that looked like a living storm cloud. Explosions lit up space like deadly fireworks. How many ships out there? He asked. Approximately 4,000. Combat vessels, Hyunwoo replied, plus support ships, supply convoys, and civilian refugees trying to escape the fighting. Total population? Roughly 50 million beings across all species. Hyunwoo nodded. 50 million people who thought they were fighting the same old war their ancestors had fought for 800,000 years. They had no idea that today would be different. Jin-Hyuk, are our science systems ready? The science officer checked his displays. Physics manipulation cores are stable. We can alter local spacetime in a radius of 1 million kilometers. Gravity, light, matter, and energy are all under our control. And the resurrection protocols? Ready but untested at this scale. We can theoretically restore life to any being that died within the last 4 hours. Yuna turned from her station. Captain, we are receiving challenges from multiple fleets. The Velthani want to know our intentions. The Pharaons are demanding we leave their battle zone. How long until they start shooting at us? Maybe 5 minutes. They are confused about which side we are on. Hyunwoo walked to the center of the bridge. His crew watched him carefully. They all knew what was about to happen would change the galaxy forever. Open channels to all ships, every species, every frequency. Yuna's fingers flew over her controls. All channels open, Captain. Hyunwoo spoke clearly and calmly. His words were broadcast to every ship in the battle zone. This is Captain Hyunwoo, of the human vessel Retribution. This conflict ends now. Stand down or face the consequences. For a moment, the battle seemed to pause. Then laughter came back over the radio. Alien voices speaking in a dozen different languages, but all saying the same thing. The humans were insane. One small ship challenging the entire galaxy. The Velthani Crystal Singer's voice came through like breaking glass. Unknown human vessel, withdraw immediately, or be destroyed. The Pharaon Stormlord's response was a rumble of thunder. Foolish solid beings, you do not understand the forces you face. The Kithara hive mind buzzed in perfect unison. Human creatures show bravery, but no wisdom. Retreat while you still can. More voices joined in. Threats, warnings, promises of destruction. But the aliens kept fighting each other even while talking to the humans. Ancient hatred was stronger than curiosity about the strange new ship. Captain, Yunwoo said, the Dracani are targeting us with their lance weapons. The ethereals are charging their reality distortion cannons. Time to show them something new, Hyunwoo said. Do-Yun, execute Protocol 0. The weapons officer's hands moved across his controls. Protocol 0 activated. What happened next had never been seen in the galaxy before. The Retribution did not fire conventional weapons. Instead, it began to alter the basic rules of reality around the battle zone. First came the temporal displacement fields. 3 Velthani dreadnoughts suddenly found themselves arriving at a battle that had ended 2 hours ago. They appeared in empty space, confused and alone. A Pharaon storm fleet tried to retreat, but discovered they were moving backward through time. The faster they flew, the earlier they arrived at the battle. The quantum entanglement scramblers activated next. Allied ships began shooting at each other without knowing why. A Kithara swarm turned on its own hive ships, Nexari battle cubes, calculated that their best allies were actually their worst enemies. Reality anchor fields deployed, Do-Hyun reported. Now no ship could escape. The normal laws of physics that allowed faster-than-light travel stopped working in the battle zone. Every vessel was trapped in local space-time. The alien commanders began to panic. Nothing in their databases explained what was happening. Ships that had been destroyed were appearing again. Cause and effect were happening in the wrong order. Space itself seemed to be breaking down. Captain, Yuna said, we are receiving desperate calls for help. They want to know what we are doing to them. Tell them this is what happens when you refuse to stop fighting, Hyunwoo replied. Jinyak activated the physics manipulation cores. Around the Retribution, the laws of nature became suggestions rather than rules. Gravity began flowing backward. Several Dracani cruisers found themselves falling upward into empty space. Light started moving in spirals instead of straight lines, making targeting impossible. Matter and energy switched properties. Solid ships became gaseous clouds. Energy beams turned into physical objects that fell through space like rain. How are they reacting? Hyunwoo asked. Yunwoo studied his tactical displays. Complete confusion across all fleets. Some ships are trying to retreat but cannot. Others are trying to continue fighting, but their weapons no longer work properly. Any attempts to coordinate against us? No, Captain. Even facing something completely unknown, they still will not work together. The Velthani are blaming the Pharaons for our presence. The Kithara think the Nexari created us as a weapon. This was exactly what human strategists had predicted. 800,000 years of hatred could not be overcome even by shared terror. Time for the final demonstration, Hyunwoo said. Do-Hyun, activate the resurrection protocols. Sir, that will use 90% of our power reserves. Do it. The consciousness transfer matrices came online. Around the battle zone, something impossible began to happen. Ships that had been destroyed in the fighting started to reappear. Crews that had died began coming back to life, not just from this battle, but from fighting that had happened hours ago in other parts of the system. A Velthani crystal ship that had been blown apart 3 hours earlier materialized with its full crew alive and confused. Farron warriors who had died when their storm cloud was dispersed found themselves breathing again aboard restored vessels. The radio channels filled with screaming. Not screams of pain, but screams of absolute terror. The aliens were witnessing something that should have been impossible. Death itself was being reversed. The most fundamental law of existence was being rewritten by a single human ship. 45 minutes since we arrived, Yunwu reported. And the battle? Effectively over, sir. No one is fighting anymore. They are all just watching us. Hyunwoo looked at the view screen. Thousands of alien ships floated motionless in space. Their crews were too shocked to move. For 800,000 years, these species had known only war. Now they were seeing something beyond their understanding of what was possible. 5 more minutes, Hyunwoo said quietly. Then we end this permanently. Soman monitored the psychological readings from her station aboard the Retribution. As the human xenopsychologist, her job was to understand how the alien minds were responding to what they had witnessed. The data was unlike anything in her research files. Captain, she reported to Hyunwoo, I am reading unprecedented stress levels across all species. Their brain patterns show complete cognitive breakdown. On her screens, waves of mental activity from thousands of alien crew members painted a picture of absolute terror. The Velthani crystalline minds were fracturing like glass under pressure. The Pharaon gas consciousness was swirling in chaotic patterns. Even the mechanical Nexari were showing error cascades in their logic systems. They do not understand what they have seen, Somin continued. For 800,000 years, these species have based their entire existence on predictable warfare. Now we have shown them that their most basic assumptions about reality are wrong. Jin-Yuk worked at the science station, monitoring the continuing effects of their reality manipulation. The physics alterations are holding steady, Captain. Local space-time remains under our control. Around the Retribution, the impossible continued to unfold. Ships floated in spirals as gravity flowed sideways. Light beams curved back on themselves, creating loops of rainbow colors. Several Dracani vessels existed in multiple dimensions at once, their crews able to see parallel versions of themselves. But the most disturbing effect was the resurrection field. Every being who had died in the battle zone during the last 4 hours had been restored to life. They stood on their ships, breathing and thinking but remembering their own deaths. The psychological impact is spreading beyond the battle zone, Soman reported. Ships throughout the galaxy are receiving reports of what happened here. Entire species are questioning their understanding of existence. Haeun managed strategic communications from her station. She coordinated with human intelligence networks across the galaxy, monitoring reactions from every major government and military force. The Velthani High Council has called an emergency session, she reported. The Pharaon Storm Singers are claiming this is the end of the universe. The Kithara hive mind has gone silent for the first time in recorded history. Captain. Hyunwoo stood in the center of the bridge watching his crew work. In 47 minutes, they had done something that should have taken decades of warfare. They had not conquered the galaxy's military forces. They had made conquest irrelevant. What about cooperation between species? Hyunwoo asked. Still none, Yunwoo replied from tactical. Even facing something completely beyond their understanding, they refuse to work together. The Nexari are trying to calculate our technology using only their own databases. The Dracani are attempting honor challenges against our ship. This was the key insight that human strategists had discovered. The alien species were so locked into their ancient patterns that they could not adapt even when adaptation meant survival. Sir, Yuna called from communications. I am receiving surrender offers from 17 different fleets, but they are all trying to surrender only to us, not to each other. Individual surrenders? Yes, Captain. Each species wants to make a separate peace with humanity while continuing to fight everyone else. Hyun-woo almost smiled. Even now, facing technologies that violated everything they thought they knew about science, the aliens could not imagine ending their ancient hatreds. Time for the final demonstration, he said. Do-yun, prepare the consciousness expansion protocol. The weapons officer checked his displays. Sir, that system is still experimental. We have never tested it on this scale. What does it do? So-min asked. It temporarily links the minds of everyone in the battle zone, Do-hyun explained. For a few minutes, every being will experience the thoughts and feelings of every other being. So-min's eyes widened. That could cause permanent psychological damage. Or it could show them what they have been fighting against for 800,000 years, Hyun-woo replied. He opened communication channels to every ship in the area. His words reached thousands of alien crews who floated helpless in space, watching their understanding of reality crumble around them. This is Captain Hyun-woo. You have seen what human technology can do to your ships and weapons. Now you will see what it can do to your minds. The consciousness expansion protocol activated. Suddenly, every Velthani could feel what it was like to be a pharaon. Every Nexari experienced the emotions of a Kythera. Ancient enemies found themselves sharing thoughts, memories, and feelings with the beings they had spent lifetimes trying to kill. The psychological impact was immediate and overwhelming. Velthani. Crystal Singer experienced the fear of a Pharaon stormlord watching his home nebula burn. A Dracani warrior felt the grief of a Nexari calculator whose entire family had been deleted by honor blade attacks. For the first time in 800,000 years, each species truly understood what their enemies felt. The radio channels filled with sobbing, not just from species that could cry, but from mechanical beings whose logic circuits were overwhelmed by newfound empathy. Readings are off the charts, So-min reported. Every species is experiencing massive emotional breakthrough. They are feeling each other's pain for the first time. How long can we maintain the link? Hyun-woo asked. Maybe 10 more minutes before we risk permanent damage. But 10 minutes was enough. Through the shared consciousness field, every being in the battle zone experienced the full horror of what they had been doing to each other. They felt every death, every destroyed world, every family torn apart by endless war. A Kythera hive worker experienced the loneliness of a Dracani exile. An ethereal phase being felt the physical pain of a Nexari whose body had been destroyed and rebuilt dozens of times. Most shocking of all, they began to understand that their enemies were not monsters. The Velthani discovered that pharaons loved their children just as fiercely as crystal singers did. The Nexari learned that Kythera drones had individual hopes and dreams despite their hive-mind nature. Captain, Yuna reported, the surrender offers are changing. Species are beginning to ask for peace with each other, not just with us. Specific examples? The Velthani Crystal Empress just offered to share territorial boundaries with the Pharaon Storm Council. A Nexari calculation lord is requesting forgiveness from the Kythera for past attacks on breeding worlds. Through the view screen, Hyun-woo could see alien ships slowly moving closer together. Not to attack, but to communicate. Enemies who had been trying to kill each other minutes ago were now exchanging messages of understanding. 49 minutes since our arrival, Hyun-woo announced. Time to end this, Hyun-woo said. Disconnect the consciousness field. Restore normal physics, but maintain the reality anchors until we receive formal peace agreements. The shared mind link faded. Normal space-time gradually returned. Gravity flowed properly again. Light moved, in straight lines, but the psychological changes remained. All species are requesting immediate peace negotiations, Haeun reported. They want humanity to mediate the talks. Soman studied her readings. The empathy breakthrough appears to be permanent. They cannot forget what they felt during the mind link. What about their military capabilities? Still intact, but they seem to have lost the will to use them. Knowing what their enemies truly feel has made violence psychologically impossible. For most crews, Hyunwoo opened communication channels one final time. This is Captain Hyunwoo. You have 47 hours to establish formal peace agreements between all species. Any attempt to resume hostilities will result in immediate intervention by human forces. The responses came quickly. Not threats or challenges, but promises of cooperation. We understand, said the Velthani Crystal Empress. The fighting ends today, agreed the Pharaon Storm Council. Peace is more logical than war, calculated the Nexari Collective. One by one, each species committed to ending 800,000 years of conflict. 50 minutes exactly, Yunwoo announced. Captain Hyunwoo looked around his bridge. His crew had just accomplished something that should have been impossible. Set course for Earth, he ordered. Our work here is finished. As the Retribution prepared to leave, thousands of alien ships began the long journey toward peace. 1 year later, Kyungsoo walked through the rebuilt Galactic Council chambers. Everything had changed. Where once 12 species had sat in separate sections arguing about war, now mixed groups worked together on shared projects. Velthani Crystal Engineers collaborated with Pharaon Storm Shapers to design new types of starships. Kithara Hive Workers helped Nexari calculators solve complex mathematical problems. As the new human coordinator for galactic affairs, Kyungsoo oversaw the transformation that had begun 50 minutes after the Retribution arrived at that ancient battlefield. How are the integration projects proceeding? He asked Minji, who served as the cultural specialist for interspecies cooperation. Minji checked her tablet. Better than anyone expected. The Dracani have shared their honor codes with 6 other species. The Ethereals are teaching phase walking to the Nexari. Even the most isolated species are participating in knowledge exchanges. Any conflicts? Minor disagreements about territory and resources, but nothing that leads to violence. They seem to have lost the ability to see war as a solution to problems. Kyungsoo nodded. The consciousness-linking experience aboard the Retribution had created permanent changes in how the alien species thought about each other. Once they had truly felt their enemies' emotions, returning to mindless hatred became impossible. Taehyung approached from across the chamber. As the diplomatic coordinator, he managed the complex negotiations that were reshaping galactic civilization. The new charter is ready for final approval, he announced. All 12 species have agreed to the permanent peace accords. Kyungsoo took the document and read through its key points. No military action without unanimous council approval. Mandatory mediation for all disputes. Shared defense against external threats. Most importantly, permanent human oversight of any situation. That might lead to renewed conflict. What about their military forces? Being converted to exploration and rescue fleets. The Velthani are using their crystal ships to build new colonies. The Pharaons are mapping uncharted nebulas. Everyone has found better uses for their weapons. Through the large windows of the council chamber, Kyungsoo could see ships from different species docked together at the station. Crews that had been mortal enemies a year ago now worked side by side. The memorial wall in the main corridor had been changed, too. Instead of listing destroyed worlds, it now showed restored planets and rebuilt civilizations. The question carved at the bottom no longer asked when the war would end. Someone had changed it to read, "Remember what peace makes possible." "Sir," Minji said, "we are receiving the annual report from Captain Hyunwoo." Kyungsoo smiled. The Retribution now patrolled the galaxy not as a weapon of war, but as a guardian of peace. Its presence reminded everyone what happened when they tried to return to their old patterns of violence. What does he report? No major incidents. A few border disputes that were resolved through negotiation, some trade disagreements that were settled by arbitration. The reality anchor systems have not been used in 6 months. And the other human projects? Taehyung pulled up a holographic display showing human activities throughout the galaxy. The resurrection technology is being used to help disaster victims. The physics manipulation systems are assisting with terraforming projects. The consciousness-linking protocols are being studied for therapeutic uses. What had begun as weapons to end a war were now tools to build a better civilization. The aliens still do not understand how our technology works, Minji noted, but they no longer try to copy it or steal it. They seem content to benefit from its peaceful applications. This was perhaps the most important change. Before the Retribution's intervention, every species had focused on military advantages over their enemies. Now they competed to see who could contribute most to galactic prosperity. Kyung-soo walked to the central platform, where the old war-planning tables had been replaced with cooperative project displays. Representatives from all 12 species worked together on plans to explore unknown regions of space, establish new trade routes, and share scientific discoveries. "Any word from the Outer Rim surveys?" he asked. "Excellent progress," Taehyung replied. "The joint exploration fleets have discovered 17 new star systems suitable for colonization. Instead of fighting over them, the species are drawing lots to see who gets first choice. A year ago, those 17 systems would have become battlegrounds. Now they represented opportunities for peaceful expansion. What about Earth? Still the administrative center for galactic affairs. The other species have accepted that humans will oversee galactic security indefinitely. This had been the most surprising development. Rather than resenting human authority, the alien species seemed relieved to have someone else making decisions about potential conflicts. 800,000 years of warfare had exhausted their capacity for military thinking. Minji received a message on her communicator. "The Velthani Crystal Empress is requesting assistance with a cultural exchange program. They want to host Pharaon students at their art academies." "Approved," Kyung-soo said immediately. "What else?" "The Nexari Collective is offering to help calculate optimal breeding cycles for the Cathera. They say it is more interesting than calculating weapon trajectories." Also approved. Such requests came in daily now. Species that had spent lifetimes trying to destroy each other were discovering the benefits of cooperation. The consciousness-linking experience had shown them that their former enemies had valuable knowledge and perspectives to share. A soft chime indicated that the afternoon council session was beginning. Representatives filed into the chamber, but not to argue about war plans. Today's agenda included scientific collaboration proposals, cultural exchange programs, and resource-sharing agreements. "The transformation is almost complete," Taehyung observed as they watched the peaceful gathering. "Almost? There are still some species that remember the old ways. Older individuals who lived through centuries of fighting, they struggle to adapt to peace." Kyung-soo understood. Changing 800,000 years of culture could not happen overnight, even with the dramatic intervention of the Retribution. But their children adapt quickly, Minji added. Young aliens who grew up after the peace accords do not understand why their ancestors fought at all. This was the key to permanent change. Each new generation would be further removed from the culture of endless war. Eventually, the very concept of galactic conflict would become as foreign to them as 800,000 years of peace had once seemed impossible. As the council session began, Kyung-soo listened to the discussions. Plans for a joint university, where all species could study together. Proposals for artistic collaborations between former enemies. Ideas for exploring other galaxies as a united civilization. "Do you think it will last?" Minji asked quietly. Kyung-soo thought about Captain Hyun-woo and the crew of the Retribution. About the 50 minutes that had changed everything. About technologies that could rewrite the laws of physics and the consciousness linking that had forced enemies to experience each other's humanity. "The aliens learned something important that day," he said. They learned that there are forces in the universe more powerful than their ancient hatreds. They learned that peace is not just the absence of war, but the presence of something better. On the main display, a new message appeared from an exploration fleet at the edge of known space. They had found evidence of another galaxy where intelligent life might exist. The 12 species that had once fought endlessly over territory now had an entire universe to explore together. 50 minutes, Tae-hyung said thoughtfully. That is all it took to end 800,000 years of war. No, Kyung-soo corrected him. 50 minutes to show them that ending was possible. The real work of building peace has taken all of us working together. As the council session continued, representatives from species that had been mortal enemies collaborated on plans for the future. The galaxy that had known only war for longer than human civilization had existed was now learning what peace could build. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, the Retribution continued its patrol, ready to remind anyone who forgot that some things were more frightening than war. The possibility of peace was one of them.